Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing another tag video. I have been seeing this one going around and I thought it was really interesting and different, so I decided that I would do it, and that is the book buying tag. I love hearing about people's book buying habits, and it's definitely a change from the tags about different books or scenarios. So yes, let's get into the tag. So the first question is, where do you buy your books from? I probably get 90% of my books at our local used bookstore, McKay's. Definitely the books I've bought in the last 6 months, that has been the case. I also shop online at online retailers sometimes, and I definitely love to go in any bookstore that I can. I try mostly to support small businesses over things like Amazon, mostly because I have issues with Amazon's business practices, so I try not to buy a ton from them, especially if I can get it locally or from an online retailer for a small used bookstore, a small bookstore. The next question is, do you ever pre-order books? And if you do, where do you do that, online or in store? I don't do a whole lot of pre-ordering. This year I already pre-ordered one book, and that was Ferris, and I actually pre-ordered it from Pal's Used Bookstore in Portland from their online site. In the past, when I've done pre-ordering, I have pre-ordered from Amazon, and I used to, with the Harry Potter books, I always pre-ordered them at the local store in town so that I could go and pick it up at midnight. But other than that, I don't think I've done a whole lot of pre-ordering. So on average, how many books do I buy a month? I would say anywhere from 3 to 8. Usually it hits around the 5 to 6 range. It just depends on if I have a good trip to McKay's, because sometimes I go there and I find one book or no books. Sometimes I go there and I find 6 books, because with used bookstores, it's definitely the luck of the draw. So the next question is, do you use your local library? I have shamefully never been one to really use the library. When I was a kid, I had a library card, but I didn't really go because my mom was a teacher, and so I either got them from the school library, or she already had them in her classroom, or we just bought them. Now, the way our library system is in my city, if you don't actually live in the city proper, you have to pay for your library card. And while it's a really small fee, I don't use a library enough to warrant paying the fee. Because I don't actually live in the city proper, I live in the county, and yeah, so I don't use it, and we have a fantastic library, so I really should feel ashamed, but yeah, never been much of a library book reader. So the next question doesn't really apply to me. How many do you borrow when you borrow books? I think when I did ever use the library, the most I ever borrowed was 2, because I'm not a super fast reader, and so I never really, I wouldn't have been able to finish more than 2 books in the time that you're allowed to keep a library book out. 6 is, what is your opinion on library books? I don't really have an opinion on library books. They're just books. I'm not somebody who cares necessarily that much about the condition of a book, so library books to me are just like used books. So 7 goes right along those lines, which is, how do you feel about charity shop or used books? I love them. I am not, the only time that I'm ever going to be sort of like, oh, I don't think I want that, it's, you know, seen better days, is if it has that real musty smell, so really old books. And that's not because I have a problem with the condition of the book, or, you know, how it's been, or where it's been before. I'm definitely not a germaphobe by any means. It's more because I have really bad allergies, and one of my main allergies is to the mold that grows in old paper. So I don't do real well with old books. Like, I can't read them because I then get puffy-eyed and sneezy and stuff. But for the most part, especially with my used bookstore, the books are basically in new condition. Like, they're, you know, the spines are not going to be in the best condition, because, especially for mass market paperbacks, or, you know, it may have some dog-eared pages or something, but to me that just gives it character. I'm not really concerned about that kind of thing. I love used bookstores, and I love being able to trade books in and get credit and buy more books at a price that's not prohibitive to my personal budget. So the next one is, do you keep your TBR pile on a separate shelf or with all your other books? This actually recently changed. So as you can see, setup is different than it was, you know, a few weeks ago, and I used to keep all of my books on the same bookshelf. In fact, I tried to separate them a little bit so the top and bottom shelves were mostly books that hadn't been read, but there were some mixed in that had. And then I had piles that I would keep out on my sofa table of the ones that I wanted to get to sooner rather than later. I still keep some of them out there on the sofa table, the ones that are like the next 5 books that I'm going to read. But now that I have this set up, we actually have bookshelves and we can spread out our books a little better. So this bookshelf that you can see right here is mostly read books. The very bottom shelf is my hardback to be read books. And then this table right here is actually a smaller bookshelf, and everything on there are my paperback to be reads. So now they're separated, and I really like that because it gives me a place to go and be like, all right, these are the books that I want to read, and I don't have to shuffle around and they don't get lost in with other books. So they're separated now. Which, side note, if you want me to do a bookshelf tour, definitely give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments, because I would love to do that, but I just want to know if you guys are actually interested in seeing that. Do you plan to read all the books that you own? So yes, I do plan to read all the books that I own. There are at least 3 that I've either DNF'd or are just books that I keep around as sort of like references. I have a couple of, like I have a rhetorical analysis book and a PR book from college that I don't plan to ever actually read in their entirety, but they're good reference books if I need to look something up or, you know, read a little snippet about this or about that. I have some nonfiction books that I have not read that I intend to get to, but they're the kind of things that, like, I'm not in a hurry to get to. I don't generally buy a book unless I plan to actually read it. So the next one is, what do you do with books that you feel like you will never read or that you read and you didn't enjoy? So this has been sort of a sore subject recently because for the longest time, I've always been the kind of person that if I didn't enjoy it, I just got rid of it. And I have started to sort of realize that that's probably not the best practice, especially as I get older and down the road, you know, my fiance and I want to have kids and, you know, our kids might eventually want to read these books. And so there are certain ones that I regret getting rid of, like, for instance, I have all of the Jane Austen books in the Borders covers, except Pride and Prejudice, because I read that in high school, so I have a different copy of that one, except Northanger Abbey. I had it, but I didn't enjoy it, and so I got rid of it. So I don't have Northanger Abbey to match the other ones that I have, and Borders went out of business, so I can't get my hands on another copy of that particular book. And that frustrates me, and I'm mad at myself for having gotten rid of them. I also got rid of the first, like, 10, except for one in the Pink Carnation series, and at the time, that was fine, because I was never going to read them again and, you know, let somebody else enjoy them and they don't have to, you know, pay for them. Because I used to use something called Book Mooch, which if you have ever used that, it's a really cool way to sort of send out books and get books that you want in return and you're only paying for shipping. Side note. So I have always been the kind of person that if I know I'm not going to read it again, or if I didn't particularly enjoy it, then I'll just get rid of it, take it to the used bookstore. But now I'm sort of realizing that I wish I had some of those books, especially to reference for booktube videos or to lend to other people. And so, yeah, I think in the future I will lean more towards keeping the majority of the books that I read and only get rid of those that I'm never going to read or that I really, really didn't like and aren't classics. Number 11 is, have you ever donated books? Yep, I do it all the time. I guess not donate, but I sell my books back to my used bookstore and get credit, and then I go and buy new books. It's definitely one of my favorite things about having an awesome used bookstore in town. Have you ever been on a book buying ban? I have not, and I don't really ever intend to. It's not that I don't think that there is value in book buying bans. I know they work for plenty of people, but for me, that's just not something that I would enjoy, and it would probably be something that was a sore spot for me, because I love to go in bookstores and browse and come out with a book sometimes not. But I'm never going to go on a book buying ban, because then I'll feel guilty about going into bookstores, and that's one of those things that I really enjoy in life. And so I don't want to limit myself when life is short. If I want to buy a book, I'm gonna buy it, and you know, I shouldn't feel bad for it, and I'm not gonna make myself feel bad for it. And yeah, that's sort of my reasoning why I would never go on a book buying ban. I just make it a point to limit buying a ton of books. Like if I go to the used bookstore, only coming away with one or two, not buying things that I know I'm not ready to read yet. And the final question is, do you feel like you buy too many books? I don't personally feel like I do. I do have 61 unread books, which is a lot for me, but they've built up over time because a lot of those books are books that I've had for years and just haven't gotten to, and many of the ones I haven't gotten to are classic books that I'm like, oh, I really want to read this, but I never feel like I want to read it at that moment. And I generally, when I buy books, I only buy them one or two at a time. And you'll notice if you've watched my hauls that generally a haul for a month or two is only like 6 to 8 books, which to me is perfectly reasonable for that amount of time. So I don't feel like I buy too many books. I feel like I need to make a point to be more selective about the books I buy and know that I have a lot of books that I should be reading on my shelves that I really want to read. I just seem to make the time for the newer books over some of these classics that I have that I want to read. So that is everything. I really enjoyed doing this tag, and if you want to do it, definitely feel free. And if you have done this, definitely let me know in the comments below because I've enjoyed watching these. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!